The protests in Hollywood last night took the form of mockery and ridicule. The focus of contempt at the Emmy Awards, President Trump, and by extension, the Americans who voted for him. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt shows us tonight.
In 2017, we still refuse to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
The Emmys recast into a political ceremony with Donald Trump as its target. Hardly surprising, given that the host was Stephen Colbert, whose comedy currency has always been politics. He told his A-list audience, not many of whom are public fans of the reality TV star turned president, they had no one but themselves to blame.
We all know the Emmys mean a lot to Donald Trump, because he was nominated multiple times for Celebrity Apprentice, but he never won. Why didn't you give him an Emmy? I tell you this, if he had won an Emmy, I bet he wouldn't have run for president. So in a way, this is all your fault.
But the president's Saturday Night Live impersonator-in-chief did get an Emmy.
I suppose I should say, at long last, Mr. President, here is your Emmy.
The biggest surprise of the night came as Stephen Colbert mused about how big the ratings might be.
Is there anyone who could say how big the audience is? Sean, do you know?
This will be the largest audience to witness an Emmys, period. Both in person and around the world.
The reaction among the audience seemed to suggest some had mixed feelings about whether Sean Spicer should have been given that moment in the spotlight. While White House advisor Kellyanne Conway told Fox and Friends today she believes the focus on politics at an awards ceremony is a mistake.
The Emmys, the Miss America pageant was very politicized. Our sports are very politicized, and it looks like the ratings are suffering. It looks like America is responding by tuning out.
And it turns out Kellyanne Conway may have a point, with the ratings matching last year's record low. Brett?
Jonathan Hunt. Jonathan, thank you. Let's get some analysis of the Emmys and what happened there. Joining us from New York, Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill and co-host of The Five. And here in Washington, Fox News media analyst Howard Kurtz. All right, Howie, your thoughts of how everything went down.
Brett, the number of people who are stunned that another Hollywood award show turned into another Trump-bashing festival is probably zero, especially with Stephen Colbert, as Jonathan pointed out, who has pushed Trump mockery to get his CBS Late Show into first place. And at the same time, you know, the shock has worn off. It's become very predictable. It's now the cool thing to do, and it may play very well in the liberal circles in which most of these stars operate, but they're kind of missing the point that a good chunk of the dwindling audience doesn't despise the president the way these celebs do.
Juan, here's how Rush Limbaugh characterized it today.
Sure, it was a 3-hour or however long it went, bash, humiliate, embarrass Trump fest, but that's not the way to look at it. The way to look at it is Hollywood, in its most prestigious award show for the television industry, devoted all 3 hours to Donald Trump.
What do you think?
I'm with Rush on this one. You know, Donald Trump, and someone said it last night at the Emmys, Donald Trump was the biggest TV star in the last year. There's just no question. He gets more TV time than any of these people who were winning Emmys last night. And I think the references to him, including the award to Alec Baldwin for playing him on Saturday Night Live, were evidence, substantiation of how dominant a media figure Donald Trump is. And of course, it goes beyond television and its overall dwindling audience to other social media platforms.
And Howie, there's a lot of reaction about the Sean Spicer appearance. A lot of folks saying, well, he shouldn't have been given that venue to legitimize him. They say. Others say, come on, it was a joke. He was just having fun. He should be able to do that after that job. Your thoughts?
There is a media mob going after Sean Spicer on Twitter, online, on television, tarring and feathering him over what was a joke. And it's if he should never be able to show his face in public again or tell a joke, or it's almost like his detractors want him to wear a scarlet letter. Now, I get the sensitivity because he was making fun of his very first full day as press secretary when he was talking about the size of the president's inaugural crowd, which was at odds with many news analyses. But look, every press secretary in every administration at times has to sort of walk up to the line of misleading the press, either through omission or through untruth. So to really go after Sean Spicer, I mean, he's been called evil, he's been called all kinds of terrible names, I think has more to do with the anger at his boss than with Spicer himself.
Now, he has, Juan, apologized for that berating reporters on that first day, but he hasn't apologized for what he had to do from that podium, has he?
No, and you know what? I mean, Sean Spicer's a friend, so let me just put that out there. But I'm going to say this, that I think that when you are speaking to the American people as Press Secretary of the United States, your credibility is very large. And yes, you have to represent your boss. You have to make sure that the president feels you are carrying his message, his water for him. But to reporters, and I think this is where the credibility issue comes in for me, if you say something like biggest crowd ever, and of course the very pictures that were evident, those pictures that you showed right here, Brett, don't substantiate it, then the question becomes, what are you doing? Is this really the job that the press secretary and the credibility, authority of the White House is sufficient to? And I think that's why people had some questions about the idea that people are welcoming Sean Spicer back now into this celebrity crowd. The elites are celebrating Sean Spicer. I think there are legitimate questions, and I think Sean himself has some, second thoughts, some reservations about what went on, although, as you point out, he's never apologized for that.
Yeah. Quickly, first Howie, then Juan. Doesn't this show the disconnect that we saw in the election? Doesn't this show more of the people in the middle of the country saying, you know what, I don't care about any of this?
Yeah, a lot of people are there's sort of a counter reaction, Brett, because people who at least are neutral on the president or might like this president see this as a bunch of out-of-touch liberal elitists. They just want to celebrate television or movies or whatever the award show is, and they are fed up and they feel like they're not being listened to and they're being disrespected.
All right, quickly, Juan.
Well, I think this picks up on what happened over at ESPN last week with the president being called by one of their anchors a white supremacist, and then the questions about whether or not that person should be suspended. People really just want to have distraction. They want sports, they want Hollywood. But you know what? Those are real people in the uniforms and behind the screens, and they have political opinions.
Juan, Howie, as always, thank you. What do you think about the Emmys, or do you even care? Let me know on Twitter at Brett Baer, or you can use the hashtag Special Report.